And speaking of Beltran, who's only 34, by the way, which kind of surprised me. I always thought of him as a 36, 37-year-old guy, and is healthy this year. I couldn't agree with you more that I think either way, if you have him or you're looking for him, that his fantasy value, he's one of those guys that could help turn your second half around if you're looking to do that or buoy you towards the playoffs, especially if he gets traded to a contender. So I think you really got to make the decision if you have him to try and sell high, or if you want to go get him, to try and get him now before he's traded with the picture you just painted, no?
Correct, I agree. I mean, that's clearly the mode I would be in terms of him. I do have him in one of my auction leagues very cheap. I have no desire to move him, especially given the value I'm getting out of him. And again, part of that depends also on the formatting. If you're in a keeper league and you have him cheap, you're probably going to want to hold on to him on the hopes that his knees do stay healthy and he goes to a team that's a contender or in a good situation where he'll put up the numbers. If you're in a one-year league and you are concerned about the decline in value if he moves to an American League team, if you're an L only, or the potential risk of him getting hurt, which really hasn't happened this year, then there would be an opportunity to sell high, but I would probably hold on to him even in that kind of case unless you get blown away with an offer.
I want to add one more thing about Beltran before we get to Reyes, which is a pet peeve of mine. I still do sports radio here in Boston on the weekends, and I will defend to the hilt the Eric Gagne trade because of the logic behind it. And people conveniently, after a trade is done, make their judgment like they should, whether it was good or bad. But let's go back to the thinking when a trade is made. So, in other words, to me, when they made the Gagne trade, it was the right move to make. You had an experienced closer who was healthy, was having a good year. You added him to a contending team. By the way, you gave up bit parts with no due respect to with all due respect to David Murphy and what he's become as a major leaguer in Texas. But it was the right move to make at the right time for the right reasons. Beltran would be the same thing. He could get hurt, he could fall apart. But if you're a contender and you're a big market team and you want to boost down the stretch, you make this move every time, all things being equal, meaning that you don't have to give up top prospects.
Yeah, I think you have no choice to do it. I mean, you brought up the Eric Gagne case. I'll give you a case that benefited Boston was the trade for Billy Wagner.
Exactly.
I mean, when Wagner came back a couple of years ago, I was one of those guys who's a proponent for the Mets not to get rid of him, especially for B-level prospects, because of the fact my view is you could have offered him arbitration and held on to him and gotten the supplemental pick. And one of the supplemental picks don't always work out, but one that Met fans very, very much remember is with Mike Hampton when they got him before the 2000 season and lost him. The supplemental pick they turned into ended up becoming David Wright. So that's one of those situations where it really worked out. And for Boston, Wagner helped you guys in terms of the run he made on the end of the year and the kind of performance he put up, and the supplemental picks that were, I mean, they agreed to not offer him arbitration when they made the deal. There's a case where if you have a shot at a contending team to get a Carlos Beltran, who right now is shown to be healthy, maybe he doesn't run as much as he used to, but he's a five-tool player, playing a very good defensive right field, has settled in well there, has experience in center field, a big bat switch hitter in the middle of your lineup. If you're a team that's looking to make a run at it, you make that run and go after him. And in a selfish perspective, look, if the Mets are going to have any chance at making a run, and I highly doubt that's going to happen unless the pitching staff continues a remarkable turnaround, and again, losing K-Rod doesn't hurt them that much because you have other pieces like Parnell and Izzy and other guys who could potentially fill in, then you have to take the shot of maybe holding on to him unless you get the return whereby you think it's warranted. And if it comes down to a money dump, then it's a pretty good and a very sorry indication as to what has happened with the New York Mets in general and what's happened with the finance associated with Fred Wilpon.